Our session title today is something about AI. Of course, we have to. AI-assisted SOAR, so accelerating security operations. And we'll dive into some nice features we got within Defender and Sentinel. But first, about me, what's my focus? As Alison said, I'm focused on Microsoft security and data security topics. So I'm 2 times MVP on Security Defender, CMXDR, and Purview data security. Working at Scopewise AG in Switzerland, so based in Bern. I'm self-based in Bern. Company is based in Switzerland. And I also organize one of the larger community events in Switzerland all around security, Microsoft Security, which is the Swiss Microsoft Security Summit. And it's not announced yet, but we will be back in 2027. So if you guys would like to follow that, you can follow me on LinkedIn and also follow the Swiss Microsoft Security Summit LinkedIn page to get more information if you would like to visit Switzerland, if it's not too far, and even then, it's a very nice country. All right, what's the agenda for today? I would like to ask you a question. You can come off mute if you want, or just put it in the chat. Otherwise, we'll have a quick discussion. Why the SOC automation is changing? Maybe what's your experience on that? A couple of technical requirements. We will talk about the Sentinel playbook generator. So it's something which supports you in natural language to generate playbooks, no longer on logic apps. So it's a big change on that. We can have look at that also in the demo afterwards. What do you need? What are the prerequisites, the technical requirements, either for the general setup of the tenant? What do you need in Defender? What do you need in Sentinel, Security Copilot? What about integration profiles? And then we will also summarize that, of course. So first, the intro. What's the 2026 SOAR challenge? What's your challenge, maybe? I'm not sure if you're in a role as analyst or doing some SOAR stuff. If you want, you can raise your hand and come off mute or just put it in the chat. It's up to you, of course. Just give you 10 seconds. Otherwise, we will go to the next slide and I will show you some challenges we're facing. Of course, you're prepared. That's fine. Otherwise, you just raise your hand. If you have questions, that's also fine. So first of all, it's with the classic automation in SOAR, and especially in the Microsoft stack, it's not so easy to do workflows. And that's a big change in the SOAR area. So if you have to do workflows like, okay, for example, I would like to isolate the device, and afterwards I would like to do something else, and after that I need to do something on the entity, for example, in the identity stack. It's super hard to have all the skills. So you get from an automation analyst engineer into a workflow engineering, and that's could be hard if you're not so familiar with some different APIs, for example. That could be an issue. At the moment, what we see, it's also a problem or a challenge when it comes to skills in general. So the skill barrier could be a problem, creating scripts, creating logic apps, creating automation in Sentinel could be a bigger challenge because of changing APIs in the backend, changing applications, also schemas, and in general environment change. If you work with cloud services like Microsoft provides in security, it's changing so massively in the last 2 years, not only on the AI stack, also in general on topics you get, on features which were released, and you get a lot of private previews and public previews afterwards. So it could be definitely a big challenge. And even if you have logic gaps or you have your workflows and you do it with AI, you do it with some AI, genetic AI tools, you need to validate. So human needs to be in control. And that's one big thing in general for all the AI stuff you do. So you could start with a manual triage, and then you need to be a workflow designer for some reasons. The second point or the third point could be AI-assisted code generation. You do that, but you still need some governance on that. And the complexity itself, it comes even more worse. So for example, here you see it's just one logic gap. It's an example. It's something based on Purview, but it doesn't matter. If you have large logic gaps with workflows, you integrate APIs and teams, you do automation there, you integrate maybe other third-party APIs from customers where you get some information from. It's super complex, and to write all this logic into a logic gap could be very hard. If you have done that in the past, you realize, okay, it needs a lot of effort and a lot of work. And especially when you then need to change something on that SOAR automation, on these logic apps, it takes you ages, maybe a while, not ages, but a while for getting back this logic. So what's going on at the Microsoft stack? I would like to go into that right now, not looking into the past things or in the current. So let's see what the future brings. When we talk about the next step, the next generation SOAR in Microsoft Sentinel or in Microsoft Defender XDR, we talk about Sentinel playbook generator. Raise your hand if you have played around already with that. Be nice just to see who tried it out, or if it's a brand new thing. Okay, cool. So it's perfect to have you guys here in the session. What is Sentinel Playbook Generator? First of all, as always, you need to have a natural language prompt. First of all, think about what you need to do. What's the step behind of the logic you would like to provide? Let's say, for example, I would like to isolate a user. We will have a look at that in an example. Enrich the alert, enrich incident, doing something else. Just prepare your prompt, what you need. And then AI will process that plan. It will create a Python playbook. So it's no longer based on logic apps. It's even better for Python automation. You can also use your other tools to create or update that playbook using a Python script language. The very nice thing on that is if you do a prompt in your natural language, it will create docs. It will create your documentation. What is the playbook doing already, and put that into the created playbook using the playbook generator. And of course, we need to test that afterwards, and we can enable it and use it on the alert page. Very nice sentence Sharon said here. It's the first milestone in the next generation security automation. So Microsoft is working on really hard on that to bring a better SOAR solution into Sentinel or in XDR in general. On what is it based? So if we start it and we look into the playbook, we see the client turns into SOAR. I don't know if you have seen about Client. So Client is an open source agent runtime. It's used in this editor in your terminal actually. So Visual Studio Code is embedded into this session where you're working into. It's perfect actually to start. So you don't have to install any Visual Studio Code products. You don't have to install extension into that Visual Studio Code. It just runs in the browser session, and I will show you that in a second. After that, you prompt it. It will provide you the details about what's going on, what kind of playbook will be created using Python. So it covers all actually the tasks. If you use the natural language prompt, helps you to create these playbooks and save it into Sentinel. Of course, you can test it, and you should test it. Client also helps you in that kind of model to test the playbook, then to save it and to integrate it in your logic in the Sentinel automation. What's a technical requirement? What you need on your tenant? So you need Security Copilot enabled because client is using SUs. When you prompt, there's a requirement for that. Also depends on the region where you are. You need to put that into the real in a region where it's supported. If we cover Switzerland, so Switzerland itself, it's not yet supported. We have a region, it's called Europe. Of course, there are other regions all around the world. Just make sure you have a supported region when you would like to have Sentinel Playbook Generator. Also, it integrates in Sentinel and in XDR, so Sentinel needs to be attached as the workspace in your XDR. It's not working when you only work with Azure Portal and Sentinel. Anyway, it's best practice already to integrate it into XDR because it's deprecated or will be deprecated next year. You need access, of course, to this playbook generator. There are dedicated roles available for that. Also in the unified roles, have a look on this. Make sure you have the access. In labs, I guess you will use your security administrator, but there are dedicated playbook generator administrators where you can work with them in a production environment. You need integration profiles. I will show you that in the demo, what it means. So to, for example, call graph to isolate devices or isolate users, the permissions on that specific application is to be granted, that the playbook can trigger that specific action and make sure the action is done properly. Please test before you roll out. It's something done in AI, so human needs to be in control. Make sure you test it before you roll it out. It could happen that you maybe oversee something, and that's not really the best idea. So that's something just in a slide where you can have it, what you need, which component fits, and just skip that because it's more a logical architecture what you need for the rollout. So what's the configuration path in general? I said, go to Sentinel Automation and create a playbook. Make sure you have your prompts ready. There is a prompt example to trigger a high severity alert, for example, extract user details, device and IP entities, queries on reputation profile. You may include some other vulnerability management solutions or general security solutions. If you have integration profiles there, you can use that. Then also review what's going on in the prompt afterwards and what will be the outcome. Save it, enable it, and that's it actually. What is an integration profile in general? As I said, the integration profile is something which helps you to automate. We'll have a look in that in the demo as well. There is a lot of pre-defined integration profiles available. For example, ServiceNow or other integration profiles where you can update cases, incidents, or maybe tickets from your third-party applications. Of course, Microsoft Graph is also available to run commands on that. We can use different connection like API keys or also OAuth authentications, So it's a very, very nice thing to use your third-party applications and integrate that in your workflows. What do you need to do? As said, make sure your prompt is correct. It's not maybe the same when you just create a little bit code with Claude or something else, because it's really integrated afterwards in your security landscape. And to optimize that, use good prompts which describes exactly what you have to do. So have a plan for that. Just switch to the next slide. Make a clear validation, and that should be in a process. Currently, it's one disadvantage of the system. You cannot add this code to local repos. It's just everything handled in the XDR portal. But we assume that this will happen in a second wave. So currently, there is no external repo available. But anyway, as Claude works, not that Claude, as Client works, first test it and then go into the act mode and provide the correct information and test everything. Okay, let me stop that sharing and then we switch to the demo. So hopefully you guys can see the XDR portal, and listen, thank you so much for confirming. What do you need? We did speak about what is required. In general, you need Security Copilot enabled. Here in my case, it's enabled with one SCU at the moment. I'm sure you're aware of the E5 benefits, so it's coming into, but sometimes you also need some dedicated SKUs to run this. That's very important. It will not cost you anything, but it needs a provided SCU to work properly. That's the first step. On the second step, go to Sentinel, use configuration and automation. In the automation tab, you will find these integrations profiles, which we just talked about. If you click on create, you will see something like action required. Of course, you need to log in again. I just did that before, but sometimes it's always in the demos. You need to do it twice or 3 times. If you never have seen that before, you have a lot of integration profiles available for third-party vendors, for example, Fortinet or GitHub or even Defender for Endpoint. It's not a third party. MISP is there, so if you use MISP, go ahead and connect it. You have OpenAI and other stuff which is maybe already used in your environment. Identity providers such as SailPoint, if you have automation there and you need to update stuff using the Python playbooks, it's actually perfect. You also can create your custom integrations. If you go here, we see all the authentication methods which are available. So from basic into AWS, GCP, or the API keys. If you connect, for example, VirusTotal, you can use your API key and add that as an integration profile. Maybe some experience or issue I was facing during the last couple of setups. There is an integrated MS Graph feature which allows you to configure an application. If you go to enterprise applications or app registrations, got my app registration here for the integration. So that should be the Sentinel one. I can find it. So we got that one. App registration with API permissions. Of course, if you run the playbook afterwards, it needs to have API permissions on that specific app which you allow into integration profile. I faced the issue, didn't report it back yet, but if you use the integrated predefine, it's not getting the right permission. So playbook will run, but it will show you or say, hey, there is not enough permission. So what I did, I created a custom integration, used the graph URL. I will share that. If I click on that, you can see it in the video afterwards. On that link, there is a graph integration, which is provided by a block of Microsoft. This is working. The built-in MG graph is not working at all. At least it wasn't yesterday. So, and I faced that a couple of times. Make sure you use the introduction of that one. Go and provide a client ID, client secret, use a custom one profile, and that will work. I integrated some other stuff as well here. VirusTotal, so say you can use API keys, GitHub if you would like to provide some GitHub actions or updating some repos there within the playbook. Use that API key, and for graph I use OAuth2. So that's a prerequisite that everything in the playbook works as expected. As soon as you have Security Copilot enabled and these integration profiles, you may see already all your logic gaps here in the playbooks, in the new UI from Sentinel and Defender. And I've created the playbook already using the playbook generator. So what you can do, soon you have everything in place, that one generate playbook, which is highlighted as new, you're able to run or to create. Otherwise, if you miss some prerequisites, it will not work. So you need to go through all the prerequisites and make sure everything is perfectly configured that you can start with your playbooks. So a very nice thing, if you start prompting, it will create your documentation. For example, that's something I prepared already now for the demo here. So I started to prompt a prompt like, okay, I would like to have a medium severity incident where a user is called demo01@alschneider.com is involved. Please contain this user, enrich the incident or the alert, and then take an action, update something else. That's actually what I prompted, and I will show you that in a second. And the whole playbook was created with the code. So the Python code, you can see all the Python code here, no longer in logic. Of course, it's just a demo. So you won't do that exact user entity name or UPN, but in that case, it's just easier to show you how it works. On the documentation page, everything will be updated, so you don't have to do that for yourself. You can, of course, also manually do that. It creates you a flow diagram, so you see exactly what's going on in that playbook. Input received, it's a medium severity. I started with a high, that's why the documentation is not correct yet, but I changed it to medium to have a little bit more severity options. Find the user, yes, I find it in the target. User matched, yes or no. Use the API graph, disable the user, API graph, update the alert, and complete. So that's a very simple one, and it's a very simple prompt as well, but it did that everything by itself. What you can do afterwards, if you have created it, or even if you're in the wizard, you can test it. So if I open the editor now, it will say, hey, please deactivate the playbook before editing. And I do that, deactivating that. It loads me this playbook within the VC code embedded in the browser. Takes a couple of seconds to load everything. And every playbook will have the same logic. So you will have documentation markdown file. You will have a playbook Python file, a test JSON, and a README markdown file. So that's how it works. So let's say I have created this playbook, and I would like to check, okay, what's going on? Can we test that? I have an active alert, by the way. So I have this guy here. It's called Demo01. It's Joker in my specific environment. And I have this incident with a couple of alerts underneath, which are medium, and I took one of these alerts here with an alert ID, getting that prompt into here and say, can you test this playbook using the alert ID, which is one of these, I guess it's a suspicious scheduled task. Say, okay, let's go. And we look at this user at the moment. It's very easy, he's enabled. I can do a refresh here. It's enabled, but actually he has a high severity incident with multi-stage involved. And if we receive something like this, we would like to contain the user or contain the device, update the incident alert page, doing some more stuff, maybe also get some investigation packages automation, and do that we have all these files ready here. By the way, you can also see here the code, and you can also edit the code directly here in the Visual Studio Code editor. Let's run this. So starting a old environment in Klein, starting with the API requests, and actually it's not doing anything until you approve it. So just give that a little bit of time. A couple of steps are tested, 3 or 4. We see that here. So this looks good. It says what's going to be happen. The alert should meet these criteria, which we had. So it's a medium alert, and the Demo01 user will be involved here. That's fine. And as we are in the plan mode here on the bottom, you can see that it says, hey, please switch to the act mode. So that will do something. We are all still in testing, not doing maybe some real stuff at the moment, but we switched to act mode, and it's going forward with executing that step. So we did the API request. You can see that. A lot of stuff going on here. So, and it got everything. Warning, testing will make changes to your production environment. So user Demo01 will be disabled in Microsoft Enter ID, and alert will be updated with the automation comment. Proceed with the test. And now it runs the Python playbook, which was completely built by natural language. I didn't write any line in that playbook. Let's check if that did work. Yes, user is disabled. So it's a very nice automation. And then I can say, okay, I'm finished. Let's finalize this. So task completed and actually updated. Can save it and close. What happens when I start with a new one? Let's go into generate playbook. Start a new one. So the logic is here. It's the same as we have seen before. It's an empty one. We don't have, or we have files. We have, of course, a playbook Python file. but it's something which is just built in by default. Let's prompt here. It's actually the same prompt I used before, or yeah, maybe not exactly the same, but let's just say, okay, that's a new one. I would like to start over. I start with my natural language input, provide me a playbook based on my prompt for that automation. So it's checking the integration graph. Yes, it's there with the API. And if you face some permissions issue, you just ask, okay, what kind of permissions do you need? What's missing? If something is missing, and you will get that exact output here. So let me copy that one. Required for that playbook. As you can see, I would already be able to go into act mode, and that's it. So you will get some output depending on what you need. Usually it gives you also the exact permissions on the application which is required. For example, user read write all, if you need to disable user accounts. I mean, that's huge. So everything in Microsoft Graph can be used in the playbooks. That's up to you what you would like to do with the playbooks. In general, automation is a nice part, and it can come into a quite heavy, not so least privileged application if you do a lot of stuff with one integration graph application. So you can imagine if you have a lot of stuff there, it will have a lot of permissions. So be aware that you monitor that, who is going to change stuff in there. That's very important. So that with that, actually, I could create that playbook as well. So if you go in act mode, it will start over doing the API requests and building the playbook, updating the README file and updating the documentation automatically. That's as you can see here. Now it's everything put into the Python playbook. I can say, oh no, it's good. I'm good with that. Save it, and the code is configured. Of course, you can copy it out into your Claude or whatever model and check if there is a better option to optimize that. It creates your documentation. You can save it. Compared to a logic app, I assume you see it very, very fast. It's definitely a good way to go with the automation because you don't need that much time. You don't need to create any connections within the logic app with a user interaction. As long as you have application permissions on the application and not using any delegated, it helps you definitely to automate faster instead of using a logic app. It just runs through, saves everything to your workspace here for that specific playbook, and you're good to go to test. So let's run that in the back. In the meantime, we go back to our slides. So to summarize that, definitely it's a different way to automate your SOAR systems. It's where Microsoft points to, no longer to have logic apps. I mean, it's still there, you can use it. It's not deprecated or something like that, don't get me wrong. The playbook generator is maybe not there where it should be at the final stage, but it's a very good option to start with testing, to start with integrating it in Python. It's a more easier language also, instead of having a JSON files in the logic apps and for automation. So it's shifting from Azure as well to XDR. So administrator, workflow engineers, or also analysts can do it directly, all the stuff in the XDR portal, not leaving it to Azure. That's a big advantage. I guess it's definitely also a nice point that we have all these integration profiles at scale. More pops in every month. So make sure you follow that as well. What kind of applications and integrations you use. May have to configure something in a custom area, but it still works. As you have seen, it was a dedicated Microsoft Graph application. It looks like a predefined one, but I used the custom one. And the most important thing in AI is human stays in control. So test everything, make sure it runs how it should run, and don't assume that it's doing the right thing, even if your prompt was good, but make sure you test it and you monitor it. That's definitely something you need to have in mind.